Welcome back. It's the Jack and Jer show. Beautiful day, July 27th. It's nice and sunny in Philadelphia. It's always sunny in Philadelphia. I don't even need to say that, really. We missed our first week of the year last week. Not like anyone really noticed, but just I noticed. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully you didn't miss us too much. But we got great news today to make up for it. Jack got a new position he'll tell us about in a second. So next week we might not have, or no, next week we'll probably have a show again, but the week after we might be on a little hiatus as he gets situated in his new position. Jack, you want to tell us about your new job?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about it. Really excited. It's for a company called Synthesio that just got ranked #1 social intelligence listening tool. So the technology is amazing. I know a couple of people pretty high up in the company, and they're just great people. I interviewed multiple people, and just great people at the company. So technology is great. People are great. Opportunity to work for a company that is, in my opinion, their market is just going to go up. The technology, in a nutshell, shows other companies that license it what people are saying about them online. So that's going to be in need forever. And so it just checks a lot of boxes. So I feel really grateful for the opportunity. And so yeah, super excited about it. But that also means that got to roll up the sleeves and focus on that. So got this week, got next week, but the week after that, like Jeremy said, a little hiatus because we all got to take care of what we got to take care of. So just got to prioritize making a great first impression.
Definitely. That's awesome, though. Pretty exciting. Congrats to you. So what I wanted to talk about this week, I'm trying to think of a segue, like a nice little way into it that's related, but nothing's really coming up in my head. Basically, I've been thinking a lot about religion and separation of church and state. I feel like people repeat that line all the time, separation of church and state, but I don't feel like it's followed at all. And I don't really understand that. So, for example, what I mean by that, couple things. One, why do churches or synagogues or any religious institution get tax exempt? Why is it treated any differently than anything else? If we have separation of church and state, to me, that means that the church should be treated no differently than anything else because the state is its own entity and it treats the church completely as its own thing, just like it treats everything else. So that's one thing that doesn't really make sense to me. And then two, I just don't get why God or the Bible is brought up when we're talking about abortion or we're talking about policies. Like you can be for or against abortion, that's cool, but why is God brought up when we have it known that it's supposed to be separation of church and state?
Well, yes, it's a really interesting topic. A couple of things I want to add just as a background before we get in there. The first thing is the separation between church and state is not a two-way street. It's a one-way street. It's that the state is supposed to be separate from the church. So the state is not supposed to be forbidding or unnecessarily regulating religious worship. And that was, and I think still is, hugely important because come the 17th century and leading up to it, before the U.S. was founded, you had all sorts of instances where the state would step in and more or less regulate the church, or they would join forces or forbid religious worship. I'm Jewish, and you could point to half the countries in the map, and they outlawed us for time over time. And so it was a relatively new idea that people could have a safe haven where they could practice the religious worship. So that's the first thing. It's not a two-way street. It's not that the state is supposed to be protected from religion. It's that the religion is supposed to be protected from the state. The second thing that I always thought was really interesting was I spent a summer in London, and I worked in Parliament, and I took a class or a couple classes there, and their religion, their country, in it, the Anglo Church. I might be messing up the denomination, or whatever. But religion is part of like their state, like it is part of like their constitution and whatnot. I forget the exact name of their documents. But there, if anyone brings up religion for any political purposes, it's very much shunned. Like I worked in government there, and I talked to members of parliament. So their representatives that they vote for, and it's very much like you do not bring up church as a or religion whatever as a backstop for any type of political argument. Here, where we have this outlawing and supposed to be the separation, and it's not codified in our constitution, and so there's supposed to be it. You hear it all the time that like religion is a backstop used as an argument for certain things. So super interesting dichotomy, in my opinion, where on one side it's codified, on the other side it's not, and almost reverse antics. So I just wanted to bring that up there because I thought the second part was interesting. I thought the first part is worth bringing up before we get into the weeds.
No, it's definitely interesting. That's something I wasn't really aware of, how it's a one-way street, taking church out of state, but not, or state out of church, but not necessarily church out of state. That's definitely an interesting point. What do you think about the taxes and like tax exemptions?
I'm not super familiar with all the ways it's taxed. An important thing to remember is that like federal income tax wasn't a thing until like the 1930s and 40s. So for the longest time in our country, like income tax wasn't a thing. And if you're a church or another religious body, like you're not there to make money anyway. You serve a higher purpose. But I imagine taxes for other things, like you're buying products,
property taxes. They don't pay property taxes.
Yeah, property taxes. So I think on one hand, it's interesting because these are institutions that aren't supposed to be making money, and I think there's a lot of value to not have them be under financial pressure, because for a very long time, like through the civil rights movement in particular, church was a huge community body, or religion as a whole is a huge community body that did so many public goods, from taking care of people less well off and being a safe haven and things like that. And I'm sure they still do. Maybe it's less visual because we have less religiosity, as they say, nowadays. And so part of me thinks that like these religious institutions probably shouldn't have that additional financial pressure that like other organizations that are for profit or just individuals, whatever, have, because they're serving they're providing a service, or maybe literally providing a good and helping feed people and whatnot, where there is no capitalistic momentum behind it. So
how do they accumulate so much wealth? Like some of these churches have bank accounts of millions of dollars, or churches that cost tens of millions of dollars for a congregation of 1,000 people. Like, should there be a limit to that? Obviously, why do some churches have so much more money than others if they're not in the game of making money? How did they accumulate more money than everyone else?
I don't think any of us can say, just broad picture, we know how. You have to look at individual circumstances. But I imagine wealthy donors at some point, maybe currently, maybe past, maybe things were gifted to these bodies. But let's do an example real quick. And this is one of my issues with the idea of a so-called wealth tax. I do think that billionaires or whatnot should be taxed heavier than other top point whatever percentage of people. But this is my issue. If the church or religious body has the majority of their wealth, not like liquid capital, in property and things like that, and you assert like a wealth tax or some type of tax on them, what does that mean? It means that the government has to go in and now appraise the value, the wealth of them. And then, let's do Jeff Bezos, because I saw Elizabeth Warren tweet this. I don't know the exact numbers, but like Bezos is worth like 180 billion or something, like an unbelievable amount. And they're like, and she's like, we hit the 2% wealth tax would be like, 18 billion. Like, imagine how much good, or 4 billion or whatever it was. Like, imagine how much good we could do. Well, here's what we're not, some of these people aren't thinking about. Now, for the church, that value may be in their land. And with Bezos, that value is mostly in his stock. And so what's going to happen is you're going to cause the church to now have to sell the property, the way that you cause Jeff Bezos to have to now sell his stock. Like, his wealth isn't like liquid like that. And so now he's like selling to like pay for these like taxes. And like, that's a triggering marketing event. Cause like whenever you see like a CEO of any company or insider like selling, like people usually normally like raise their eyebrows, even though like they have to report it to the SEC and have a grace window. But what I'm getting with the church is, if there's a wealth tax or something like that, if their wealth is in their land, we really want them to be like selling like 5% of their land like at a time, or like putting them in this position. So like, I don't know, like when it comes to property taxes and things like that, if that's like really something that like we want as a society to be forcing, not for profit organizations to be doing. With that being said, I'm a complete hypocrite, because like I've studied a little bit, not knowledgeable at all, like the not Mormon, Scientology, and I'm like, yo, how does this Church of Scientology have like billions of dollars worth of land and like the best real estate like around the world? Like, how do they have all this money? Like, this doesn't make sense. So like on one hand, I have a soft spot, I guess, for like the church and Judaism, and like I think I'm very respectful for like Islam and other things. But on the other hand, I'm such a hypocrite when it comes to like Scientology, because I'm like, that shit is bullshit. And like, I apologize if you're a Scientologist out there. I mean that kind of tongue in cheek, but like I have my own cognitive dissonance when it comes to this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then it becomes a fine line of what is a religion? What deems a religion a religion?
Like, yeah, and I think there should be religious exemptions for everything. So, for instance, peyote used to be used to be a really coming of age. If you want to look at Judaism, for like a bar mitzvah type ritual that they would give to young people to like officially bring them in to like the society, and like peyote was like a Native American thing. Ayahuasca was happening in more of like the Amazonian region, things like that. And like we have these laws with like contraband, and so like going back to like church having separate rules from like the rest of us and things like that. Like, yeah, do we really want to be putting these regulatory barriers? Like, why is it okay for the U.S. or any government to say like, no, that religious practice, that's actually no longer a religion. That's a bunch of shenanigans, and we're going to outlaw that. So like
then it opens up a huge can of worms of can you start a new religion, and can a new religion have new policies? The biggest can of worms that I'm about to bring up is gonna come up, I'm sure. Vaccine. Masks, my religion is against the vaccine. There's going to be some vaccine mandates. There already was. For example, this is interesting. The NFL has fired like 2 coaches already for not getting the vaccine. So front office of the NFL has to get the vaccine as of now. Players aren't forced right now, but front office as of now has to get the vaccine. And 2 coaches have refused, and they've been fired. What if those 2 coaches said it's against their religion?
Yeah, no, it's
you
super
can't fire
interesting.
someone against their religion, right?
Yeah, so in law, there were cases of parents that were, I'm going to botch this, so please don't like censor me or whatever. I think they were born again Christians, or they were some type of denomination that didn't believe in utilizing Western medicine, and their kid had some type of virus or bacteria infection that like could have been cured by antibiotics or something like that. But they didn't believe in that. They just believed in praying, and so the kid died. And they were they were brought to court for criminal child neglect,
Negligence
or
or whatever.
yeah. It's one of those crimes. And it's the same thing.
They were guilty, right?
I don't remember. There's a bunch of these cases out there, so I'm sure someone one way, someone the other.
Yeah.
But I bring this in because it's not exactly the same, but like
But
Muhammad Ali was sorry, go ahead.
no, it's not exactly the same, but it is. It is pretty
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
So Muhammad Ali was a conscientious objector when he was drafted into the Vietnam War, and what that basically means is that he fundamentally didn't believe in like going to war, or at least going to this war. And it's a really high bar to get out. It's basically the only way to get out if you're drafted in the U.S. military. And it takes a huge undertaking to prove that like your feelings are truly sincere. You're not just dodging the draft. You have sincere beliefs, and so like when you're getting into things like this, it's super uncomfortable, and it should be super uncomfortable because you start analyzing whether someone's intentions or beliefs were authentic and genuine. And I get so uncomfortable when this stuff happens all the time because you see people on Twitter and social media being like, "There's no way he meant that, or she meant this, or blah blah blah," and it's like, how do you know? Like,
Right.
we only see their actions. For you to assume that Donald Trump said this, but he actually meant this, or that Dr. Fauci said this, but he actually meant that, or
Yeah.
like to be assuming an intent behind it for like whatever else, like that is a mental exercise that like it's near impossible unless you have
Yeah.
actions to follow it up. So going back to what we were saying here is whether something is actually a religion and should be protected, or passing on the vaccine because it's against your religion. Like it's a huge undertaking to show the level of sincerity needed for some of these things to like either have a lawsuit or be protected from the law, or like whatever it is. And it shouldn't be taken lightly because religious freedoms are serious. Like people should have the right to like do what they want to do, or not do what they want to do, but like to follow their faith. And so it's a tough thing to solve. There is no easy proof to be had.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's a lot of loopholes that it reminds me of, or a lot of things it reminds me of, and loopholes I'm thinking of. So what it reminded me of just now was kind of when immigrants get married to Americans, and you kind of sometimes you have to like prove that you're actually in love to like get the citizenship. Where I've had a few friends who've like had this done, and my brother actually, where you have to like show that the couple has been going out for a few years, that they've like gone to parties together, that they've met each other's family, that they've like kissed and whatever. Where to me, it's a little interesting. It's like, who's to say that they didn't just meet and fell in love right there? Like, why can't you just fall in love in one day? Why do you have to have a history of it? Or what if it's your religion is arranged marriages, and you decided to get religiously married to them? Like, why is there something against that? But then that's a whole can of worms with the immigration. Like, we might have a new immigration policy of marriages or something.
Yeah, like it's so I have a good friend, and she's going out with an Israeli guy, and they were trying to go to Israel. He was flying back, and she wanted to go with him, and she had to show the Israeli government like text messages and like prove their relationship the same way that you were talking about like earlier. And it's so funny because what they're really after is like intent. Like, do you really intend to be in this relationship, and you have these feelings and things like that? But the only way we can prove intent really is through actions. But
Right.
like, who is there to say that there are like, yes, there may be some actions that are more or less like objective, like showing a certain mindset. But like, who's to say that like the way someone else shows their love and sincerity is the same way that like other people do it? Like, why do I need to have a grocery list long of like text messages to show how much I care about someone, rather than just being like saying I like you, or whoever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has a different way of showing love too. So I don't
So
know.
but like here's something that's like, church and state, whatever, is how serious does something need to be, or how antithetical to like our values as a society, which more and more just seem amorphous in today's
Yeah.
world. Does something need to be for us to be like, you know what, that I don't care if it's part of your religion, this is an outdated practice and we're not going to have it here. For instance, in my opinion, female genital mutilation or female circumcision, which is genital mutilation, like that is a part of like some culture and religions, particularly in like Africa and like Middle East and things like that. And I think it's for lack of better words, I think it's pretty barbaric.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like I'm a Jewish dude. Like back in the day, like someone took a scissors to my schlong and like gave me it. And it's a very different thing for men and women from what I understand. But like at what time do we feel comfortable like as a society being like that isn't okay? Like in certain religions, women can't own property. Like, are we going to say like in here, like you like the property has to go to the 3-year-old if the husband dies and the woman's widowed? Like are we like at what time do things, in your opinion, cross the line from like protecting religion to like we have values in this country and this needs to be protected by our value system?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. That's
Come on, Jerry.
No, that's too hard. I mean, it's impossible to say because yeah, it's impossible to say. I like to think that everything should be accepted.
Polygamy?
I like to think everything should be accepted if someone really wants to do it.
Child sacrifice?
I like to think everything should be accepted.
Hey,
as long
Jeremy
as
is all for child sacrifice. Get after him, Twitter.
as long as no one's hurt. So child sacrifice, no. But polygamy, if no one's getting hurt, I don't know, maybe it's not so bad.
What about in some religions, if you're Orthodox, the man can't touch the woman, especially if it's a married man or like something like that, and you're in a city or something like that where there's no female doctors, and the woman gets hurt, like
You're allowed to if your life is in danger.
in Judaism, I don't know if it's like that in every religion.
Yeah, no, true. I don't know. But basically, if no one is gonna get hurt, I like to think that you should be allowed to do it in some way. I don't think though that there should be extra resources for you to be able to do whatever it is in that one way. So for example, like I think polygamy should probably be allowed. But I don't think there should be like a
Benefits or stuff.
yeah, special benefits for people who are polygamy because like
$500 each wife.
yeah, no, that's yeah, no, exactly. But if people want to do that, I don't want to stop them.
So condone but don't support.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Hey, I'm super libertarian, so like I can get behind that. Who am I, Jack Tannebaum, to come in and say someone's religious beliefs are insincere and that my ivory tower should have merit in saying what they should and shouldn't do. I'm with that.
Exactly, but the least accepted is probably Judaism lately. I feel that's
well, we're yeah, we'll get it from both sides, and we always will.
Yeah, everyone can stand behind hating Jews for
yeah. Well, the left thinks that we control the banks and that we're white and blah blah blah, and the extreme right thinks that we're not white, we're a vermin within the people, and
yeah,
blah blah blah. It's it's a good time had by all when it comes to the Jews.
Exactly. But that's about all I have to say about religion. I can't really do more than 20-30 minutes of religion a week or I start getting an allergic reaction.
Yeah, I will say though, one of the things that I've reflected a lot this year, and I'm not praying to Hashem, or at least routinely, but routine I think is something that like religion has that has a place in today's society and should always have. And it could be like the weekly, like Friday night, the Sabbath, and having that moment to like block out the world and like just focus on like being with your family and things like that. It might be like the yearly stuff. It might be like for Judaism, Yom Kippur is the holiest day. So having that day to like atone for the negative things you may have done and apologize to people, and like reflect on like how you can be better. And so I think those types of things are like so needed. So even though as a society we appear to be getting less religious, or at least parts of us get to it, even though I'm not religious, I do go back to those things of like there are some of these traditions that are just, even if you don't believe in the higher power, just like so valuable to have like in your life or with your family or in your community or whatever it is.
Definitely. I like to think that Judaism promoted having like intent a lot, where I never understood saying prayers before you eat, but now I like to like think about why I'm eating what I'm eating and like actually have an intent for it, not just like eating randomly, which goes a little bit with having routine.
I think very similarly, when I started getting into like right now what I'm grateful for a while, I was like saying the Shema in the morning, which for those that don't know is basically like thanking God for being able to wake up in the morning. And so the same way you're saying like saying a prayer before you eat, one of the things that I've I don't want to say recognized, but discovered, in my opinion, is a lot of those prayers aren't just like praying. It's showing you're grateful. It's literally explicitly articulating that you're grateful to have food, you're grateful to have people around you, you're grateful to have woken up this morning. And I think there's an enormous value, especially because I read about this more and more about it, how being grateful is just such a great, it just jumpstarts a way of thinking that like transfers over to so many things. And so when you say that, that's what I think about. And really for the first time I thought about, because I was thinking about the Shema, about like when you say those blessings, it's part of it, maybe just not like, blessing, but it's showing your gratefulness.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But I think that is about all I have to say. Any closing remarks, Jack?
Jeremy's wearing an awesome shirt. You guys should check it out if you can see the video. So go support Jeremy. I will once they go. Are they on sale? Are they on the website, or we just
they're on sale. I'll give you one next time I see you. I got you.
No, I gotta buy it. I gotta support my friend.
We gotta do an exercise session before you start working.
Yeah, I'd love that. But guys, thanks for tuning in. I know we just rambled. I know that like who knows what we talking about? Muhammad Ali, religion.
That's what religion is. That's what religion is. Rambling.
Yeah.
Par for the course. All right. Love you, brother. Have a good one. Talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. See you later.